So welcome back to Beyond the Ceremony. I'm Laura Crockett, your host and one of the AMC mentors, and I'm joined today in the studio by the lovely Julie Sullivan from Julie Sullivan Funeral Directors.
Thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. Thank you for coming on. It's lovely to see you here.
It's very exciting.
And it's nice to see you got the blue and white memo too.
Of course.
We're very colour coordinated today. I'm loving it.
I'm not in black.
No, exactly. Yeah, which makes a change because do you tend to wear black for all the funerals?
We don't actually. We wear grey.
Yeah, nice.
And my main conducting suit, which I did wear today actually, but it's a blue tweed because we're trying to move away from this Victorian vibe, you know, the hat and the cane and the long black tails. And but if somebody said to me, Julie, actually I want you to wear blue, great. Yeah. I can wear my dress.
Yeah, exactly.
So
you can go
whatever will go. So.
And that's the thing, we do see a lot more of that. I was just talking to you before we started recording about a service that we're doing soon together. Yes. And you know, she absolutely loved pink. So of course I'm going to wear a pink dress for the day.
And we will at the very least wear pink ties.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we probably will stick with our greys because grey and pink is nice.
Yeah, it looks lovely.
And it's respectful, but it's not too sinister. Yeah. We don't use the cane. I do occasionally wear the hat depending on where it is. Do I need to be noticed that I'm the conductor? Because otherwise, if there's a lot of people, it's very difficult sometimes to work out who's in charge. We need to do something, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, we'll wear whatever.
Yeah, that's nice. I think as well, it's just things have changed so much 100%. Now, haven't they? Like when you think about, I don't know, the last 20, 30 years of funerals, look how different it is now. It's a lot
women
more
conductors.
Yes, exactly.
It's so great to embrace having females in the industry and even going back really to the 1930s. Years ago, the lady would be behind the scenes and they'd be responsible for the laying out of the deceased. Yeah. The conductor was always a man. Yeah. And so, you know, to now sort of break through and have lady conductors, women owning businesses, running these businesses, it's great.
It is amazing.
And actually, why not? Because when we're looking after a loved one, particularly a lady or a child, they want a woman.
Yeah. That level of care.
Exactly. Absolutely. So actually, I don't know how before this even worked with just a male, male heavy industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're seeing really good leadership in the industry, women running businesses, women pallbearers.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I've worked with a few of your team.
Absolutely. Female, and so girl power.
Yeah, absolutely. Amen to that. I love that. So let's take it back to the beginning then, Julie. Tell me a little bit about you and, you know, Julie Sullivan Funeral Directors. Obviously, your name's above the door. So tell us all about that. Where did it all start?
Okay, so I always wanted to be a funeral director, even as a little girl.
Really?
Yeah, which is a bit odd. So I didn't actually get able to be involved in the industry. I actually met a funeral director at my neighbour's funeral.
Okay.
And he was setting up a business in Morton. He'd just taken over a business that was being sold. And I was introduced to him, and he said, "Would you like to run the business for me?" Well, at that time, I was a business manager for a school, and I thought, "Oh my gosh, if I give this up, I've never done this, but I wanted to do it." And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, good for you.
And that was it, really. So I ran a business for quite a few years, and sadly, he passed away. So at that point, then it was the right thing for me to do to set up on my own.
Yeah.
My son works with me.
Yes,
Lewis.
he does. Yeah.
My brother Brian joined us last June from the fire service.
Oh, amazing.
So he is the one who's always very sensible and the health and safety of the industry of our business. And Lewis also conducts, as you know. He's amazing. And we've got a great support team behind us. So I've been doing this for over a decade now, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, but things I've seen in 10 years, things have changed. Yeah. But I'm just really blessed. I work in a great community with a lot of people that I know anyway. So it is a great profession to be in.
So you say you've always wanted to do it since being a little girl. Can you remember why? Like, what was it as a little girl that you thought?
Because
I love that?
I think the thing is, when you look at, say, on the TV, there's not a lot out there about death.
No, exactly.
I think Stacey
Dooley. I was going to say Stacey Solomon then. That would have been a very different
can you imagine her doing it?
I'd have loved it though.
Well, she did something recently,
Dooley,
but there's hardly anything out there about behind the scenes of what goes on. So there's lots on having babies, but not so much on what happens. And we've all got to encounter death and understand it. I was really interested in it. Yeah. And it wasn't just a fascination with, what's going on behind closed doors. I really was interested in it. And so it was a big jump of faith for me, a leap of faith to go from a secure job at a school to not knowing whether this was going to work out or not. And I thought, if I don't do it, I'm going to regret it.
Well done.
And so it was the right time. And as a woman, coming into the industry even 10 years ago was quite a big thing.
Yeah.
And I also sort of on the back of that, so I run my business, but also I'm a funeral quality assurance assessor. So I work for a trade body. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't know that.
So I go around other funeral homes and make sure that they are adhering to the code of practice.
So important.
So exactly, it's massively important, especially because, and again, I know this isn't part of our topic today, but there was a big issue up in Hull.
Absolutely, yes.
Which I know is quite distressing,
topic.
And I think actually, you know, for anybody looking at choosing a funeral director, make sure they're part of a trade body.
100%.
Because you know then that they have been inspected. You know that they're doing what they should be doing.
Yeah.
So I do that as well on sort of as part of my job. So yes,
I didn't know that. That's amazing. And I think exactly like you say, because that is something that perhaps families weren't aware of, all these things that they should be doing, or, you know, checking out, or how they can. Absolutely. I mean, how can a family know that they are in safe hands?
Well, make sure that your funeral director that you choose is part of the trade body, and the trade bodies are SAFE.
Yeah.
And the NAFD, and the National Association of Funeral Directors. So make sure that they are one of those. Mm-hmm. If they're one of those, it means that they've been inspected by somebody like me.
Yeah.
They are adhering to a code of practice. Now, just recently on the back of Hull, most of us have also had a inspection from your local county council.
Yes, great.
Which hopefully, if they've found any issues, they will have been ironed out. Mm-hmm. But just in the first instance, make sure they're a trade body. And you know what? I mean, we're really lucky because we're in a really small community. But if you've got half a dozen funeral directors on that high street, go in, talk to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And find out, you know, are you going to be greeted with a nice smiley face and you feel instantly, you know, relaxed? Or are they a little bit, you know, closed behind, you know, and not being treated how you want to be treated?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the point is, if you're not being treated out the front correctly, then you start to wonder then what else is going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
totally get that.
So, and it's really important, you know, to be thinking about that.
No, definitely. And I think that's the thing. It can be such a scary time for a lot 100%. Of families. You know, this might be the first time they've ever had to
in a lifetime. How often do you arrange a funeral?
Yeah,
once or twice if you're lucky.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
And things do change. So what I was doing even 10 years ago to what I'm doing now is really, you know, different.
Yeah, completely different. You know. So talk to me about that changing landscape then. I mean, we've got a question later on that we're going to talk about, but what do you think maybe in the last 10 years, like how have things changed?
Well, obviously women becoming, you know, at the forefront of the industry is great. Having women pallbearers, having women celebrants, you know, and directors. The biggie, I think, is the direct cremation, which I know that it was on your agenda. I can talk about that now.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, talk about it now. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, so direct cremation, I don't even think was a thing.
No.
I can't remember it being a thing. Sometimes, so direct cremation, for anybody that doesn't know, is where nobody attends the crematorium. So we will take your loved one from our premises to our local crematorium, and that's something as well that you need to check out if you are, you know, if anybody's watching this and actually looking at direct cremations. So make sure that you know where your loved one is going, where they're being looked after. Yeah. We will give our families the time and the date that's going to happen, but they cannot attend.
No.
And sometimes there's a reason for it. I'm looking after a family at the moment, and the reason they wanted it is they were with their loved one when she died. She's quite a young lady. They don't want to go through that trauma again of saying goodbye. Yeah. But they're going to have a celebration of her life.
Lovely.
When they feel ready. Yeah, and I get that. Because it was really hard for them. But, you know, the problem you've got with the direct cremations is it's sometimes somebody will sign up for it, particularly these adverts on the TV, saying, oh, it's going to be easier for the family and it's a bit cheaper and whatever. But the family need to say their goodbyes.
I think so.
It's a rite of passage.
It's very important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and they're not going through that grieving process, which is a funeral is hard. It doesn't matter if they're an older person or a younger person. A funeral's hard. And you know, but you've almost got to go through it as part of the grieving process. So when we've got these direct cremations, they've got, well, what happens? You know, where's that grief gone?
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
There are ways of honouring lives. So, you know, for instance, yes, you can go to you cannot have a cremation, but you might have a party or a meal or a memorial. Yeah. But I think when we are asked about them, we'll say, right, what is it you want? there's ways of getting around it. We can do very simple stripped back funerals. So it may be that they'll say, well, mum didn't really want anybody, no fuss.
Yeah.
But actually they want to do something. So, well, let's keep it low key.
Yeah,
let's keep it to a very short service.
Yeah.
There's ways we can honour both sides.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, obviously, again, in the day, you perhaps didn't have the choices that you've got now. COVID, in a way, did us a favour because we've got the live streaming. We've got all the photo stuff we didn't have.
Yeah.
So that, in a way, has been quite useful. What we wear, what we listen to, what vehicles we have or we don't have. Actually, you can have what you want.
Yeah, that's really
so
special.
there's a lot more choice out there.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important that we get that right for families
yeah,
as well.
Absolutely.
But respecting tradition if that's what they want.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think actually for me, hearing you talking about the direct cremations, it's like, I'm having those conversations all the time now with my family because I think exactly like you say, we don't talk about death enough, but yes, it happens to all of us. Yeah. And actually, you've lived a whole life. It's so important to get that right because that's your final farewell. And I've been talking to like my family and things like that. And my mum has got this thing in her head where she's like, oh, I don't want everyone there and I don't want a coffin. And I'm like, but mum, you could have a direct cremation but still have a memorial where we still have that service because exactly like you said, I think it's important.
It's for
to
you.
Say goodbye. I think having that little moment, and if she doesn't want a coffin there, she doesn't need to.
Why does she not want a coffin there when she's not there then?
Don't know. I don't know. She just got this thing.
To protect you.
She's got this thing. She says, I just don't want everyone seeing my coffin coming in. And I think exactly like you say, it is. She's
trying to protect her family because, but actually you've almost got to go through it, you know.
Have.
And actually, again, it doesn't have to be a wooden traditional hard coffin.
Exactly.
Look at the beautiful coffins that we just talked about.
Gorgeous.
You can have. So I think we try to find out from a family when that happens, is this what you really want?
Yeah, absolutely.
If it's not, then let's try and work out, with a celebrant, with a vicar, how are we going to get this to something that is going to be right for both?
That feels right.
So I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I don't know going forward what's going to happen. I think we've got to be flexible. The new generation, they want to go online, they want to book things, they want things instantly. So we've got to be aware of having lots of things online for them. But I don't think anything can beat sitting down with a family, face to face.
Yeah, and having that moment, and it doesn't need to be a somber tone.
No,
if you don't want that kind of sadness there.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the times we worked together. I said right from the beginning of working with you guys, that's kind of my vibe for funerals is a celebration of life. I always want it to be uplifting and really celebrate what made that person so wonderful.
Exactly.
And I think that's the thing. I think people who aren't aware of their choices maybe think, oh, we've all got to sit there in black and all be crying the whole way through.
Listen to Nimrod and that's
it. Yeah, and it doesn't need to be like that.
Absolutely doesn't. No. And I think there is points in funerals where it is difficult, particularly I always find music and photographs.
Yeah, always.
And that's kind of expected, but actually very rarely when somebody's come out of that side door afterwards, they'll be upset, but then it's almost like this massive relief.
Yeah, it's like that real big exhale, isn't it? They're like, oh,
yeah, that's it. And then they're sharing stories and memories and they're going on to the wake and it's kind of the right thing to do.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong for them being upset. And, and that's how we manage it between us is how do we manage this? How do we get this right? How do we nail this to absolutely celebrate that 95-year-old's life or that, 19-year-old's life?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's the big difference is how you deal with those families.
100%. So then we've touched on it a little bit, but let's talk about your relationship with Celebrants as a funeral director.
Yes.
So how would you work together? Obviously we know because we've worked together, but for people who, are new to this, how would a funeral director work with a celebrant to support their families?
Okay. So, I think to establish a good working relationship, which I'm sure we'll talk about anyway, that sort of attributes with us working together. It could be a celebrant doesn't like us or the way we work, and it may be. I haven't come across this, but not working well with a celebrant.
No, I think you're safe, Julie.
But I think the main thing actually is we've got to get on.
Yeah.
You are part of our team.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we employ you, we recommend you to work with our families. If we can't trust you to do that job, it's my head that's on the chopping block. Of course, really.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like, we might recommend a florist or other a catering or whatever. I'm just trying to think, but actually you play such a vital role in putting that together.
Yeah.
If I'm sat at the back of the service and it's not great, that isn't good for me.
No,
so I've
absolutely.
got to have that trust in my celebrant that they are going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
And some of them are hard.
Yeah.
Some families aren't as easy to deal with as others.
Yeah.
Particularly depending on a mode of death, for instance, that can be really, really hard.
Yeah, of course.
So I think particularly having a good relationship and having the trust to to have the confidence for you to be part of our team and to be an ambassador of our business, really.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
your business as well, isn't it,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think that's really important. And also, sort of singing off the same hymn sheet, really, in that, again, the celebrants that I work with, we all kind of get it and we all work together and we understand this is how it all works and we agree.
Yeah.
If you didn't particularly sit well with the celebrant and it didn't quite work, then actually
it's not going to work for the family.
It's not going to be great.
No, I totally agree.
But I always get the vibe. I mean, we don't work with a lot of celebrants. We haven't got many, and actually I do like to just have a few. And I think we become friends. And I think the main thing is you're part of our team.
Yeah,
and that's how we look at it.
Yeah, and I think so too. And especially like on those family visits, for example. So we'll go out and see that family.
Yeah.
And actually, so many of the questions involve you guys as well. I'll be saying, I will speak to Julie's team about this, or Julie's team will have advised you on that. And, we are there, the two of us, or all of us together, to support that family from all sides.
Exactly. And that's one of the things, and it might be something we pick up on, but one of the questions I think that you'd sent me was, I can't remember what the question was, but it was about not repeating ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I might see the family on the initial interview.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've sat and a celebrant or a minister's been with me, but very often it may be myself or Lewis, and we sit with the family and we'll ask these questions and then I feed them back to the celebrant.
Yes.
We do not want to be that poor family having to go through it all again.
No, exactly.
But I think we kind of nailed that. We get it right. We
absolutely.
know how we work, what questions to ask. So that seems to work really well. But if you've got a celebrant that isn't quite getting that information from me and not really doing their homework and then going and that poor family's got to go through it all again, it's not great.
It's too much. And it's such a difficult time anyway. Really, at the end of the day, we are there to make their life easier,
and
take away as much as we can so that they can just focus on working their way through their grief. Definitely. So what do you think then when you are matching a celebrant with a family, what are those kind of key attributes that you look for, or what are the things that you would think, right, okay, that's what makes them a good celebrant for that family?
Okay, I think the main thing is what I googled this. I AI'd this last night, or whatever it's called, to find out emotional intelligence. Is that I always use that word, and I'm thinking I don't actually know what that means, and I did read it. The ability to read instinctive feelings of ourselves and others, and how you express yourself. So, and I think you can either do this or you can't.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can be taught it.
Yeah.
I don't know, but if you go into a room and you've got a lady, a family, and say their grandmother's died and she's 105, it's going to be sad, but there's going to be probably some great memories.
Yes.
And it's going to be quite easy.
Yeah.
You could go into a room where you're looking after a teenager that sadly has passed away for whatever reason. That's going to be very different.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
You've got to know how to handle it. The jokes, not the jokes, but just even how you are in your personality.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be blimmin' hard, and you can walk out thinking, "Gosh, did I actually achieve what I wanted to then?" So I think an attribute would be, okay, so we've got a very difficult situation here. We need to match that family with somebody that is going to be capable of dealing with this, because this is very, very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And again, my little sort of group of celebrants that I work with, I know they can all handle those situations.
Yeah.
As a new celebrant, I guess it is experience, and you would hope that if you're working with the funeral director, then they're going to be quite kind to you and perhaps give you some that are easier.
Yeah, of course.
It doesn't mean that you're having to work less or not, but there are some where the situations can be hard. So I think that what I call emotional intelligence, I don't know if that is something you can
teach perhaps.
I don't know.
Something that absolutely. But I know exactly what you mean, and I think that's where being led by the family is so important, because I'll go and sit with some families and I'll say, okay, what's the kind of vibe that we want to go for? And some of them straight away are, we want to have fun with it, we want to tell these stories, and we want to swear because that was dad through and through, and it's like, okay, that works for them. Then you have some that they want to keep it quite short and sweet, because they might still be in a lot of shock, and you know that is not the kind of time where we would be having fun with it and laughing about those uplifting memories. It's, you know, there's always a kind of like, I think when you first go into that meeting, I think from the family, there's always that anticipation of what's this going to be like. Exactly. And I always think if you can get those comments from a family at the end of the meeting that say, wow, thank you, that was a lot easier than I expected, or you've made that nicer than I thought, or actually it's been quite nice, you know, talking about them. I think that's really shows that we've done our job properly to 100%, ease that pressure 100%. A little bit. And
also I think actually I've never really given this a thought before, but usually when we work with the family, they've chosen me to look after their loved one. I recommend you. So they don't know who you are.
No, exactly.
Or the celebrant is, you know, for most funeral directors. So, you know, although I've got the trust in my celebrants, if they don't know who you are, what to expect. Exactly. So you're quite right that I think it's quite hard, you know, and, you know, if you can get as much experience shadowing, I would say do that.
Definitely,
which I know
that's
is something
great
we'll
advice.
Probably come on to.
Yeah, that's great advice.
I think also, again, talking about matching celebrants to families, again, we're quite local, we haven't got that many crematoria in our area or natural burial grounds, but having a good understanding of where they are, because that gives the family the confidence when you say, this is where you park, this is what we've got, this is how many minutes of services, you'll leave by this door, these are the situations with the catafalque, it doesn't move, curtains go, all these things you need to know.
Yes,
the celebrant needs to know. And if they are not familiar with a certain one, because they might not live in that area, which is because we're so rural, everybody seems to know every area, they all go, but that might be something to consider.
Yes, absolutely.
Is a location, so that they know exactly what they're talking about, and getting the names of towns correct, because I have had people which, you know, you just think, oh my gosh, you don't pronounce it like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And actually think, oh no.
Yeah, and it shows that local knowledge, like you say, and to some families that's really, you know, it might be a childhood important town or whatever, so things like that.
Doing the homework is, you know.
Absolutely, and I think exactly like you said there, knowing where your local crematorium is, if that's where you're going to be doing a lot of services, go and see them. They're so lovely. Absolutely. They'll let you go and do a little tour, you know, so that you are prepared. I think that's the thing for this. Preparation is key.
Yes.
If you are prepared for anything that family might ask you, like I say, we're there to be that kind of, you know, support for them, that support system. So if we can help make that feel a little bit clearer, and actually what's going to happen once they go into that, you know, chapel, actually if we can help clarify a bit of that and
absolutely
and take
because
away a bit of those
they
worries.
may have been to a crematorium, they may have been to a burial site, they may not have been. And how scary is it? Because we do it all the time.
Exactly.
You have to remember that these people might not have attended a funeral for many years, or if at all. And so how scary is it to think, well, what happens?
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
So to do your homework, to get it right, to visit, to understand everything there is to know, shadow, sit at the back of services. Ask a funeral director, can I just come and sit and watch? You know, and understand what happens. Yeah,
good idea. No, I think that's fantastic. So what do you think then? What would you say are some of the key things that us as celebrants need to consider to give our family? So obviously we've spoken about how we work together. Do you think exactly like we've just said, really? Do you feel like we've probably covered all the main points?
I think so. I'd put do your homework, which is what you said.
That's it,
so visit crematoria, make an appointment, don't just turn up. Go and see the local ones that you think you're going to be working with. Understand how they work, because some of them are a little bit different in their catafalque, in particularly where the coffin sits. Not many around our area, but some lower, which is very different to what we look at. Natural burial sites, because I was thinking as a celebrant, you're more involved in the natural burial grounds, so a burial which isn't as familiar working with you on burials as a crematoria, but visiting those, visit your funeral directors. Also, I'd noted about, as a celebrant, understand the process of death from the time it happens to the funeral. Even if it's just reading the funeral director's information booklet, what happens? What does that mean? What happens if they go to the coroner's? How does that work? You know, because if you understand roughly what they're going through, it might make it a little bit easy to understand perhaps their emotions as well, and the time scales on things. Bearing in mind, your funeral director is there to guide you through all that as a celebrant. We wouldn't expect you to have to know the ins and outs of His Majesty's coroners, you know, but it's worth understanding the process of death. I think that's quite important.
I do. And I think realising as well, how much these families have to go through before they even get to their first meeting with you.
Exactly.
Like, there's so much.
Exactly.
And I think, like we say, anything that we can help to ease that. And also, are there some conversations that you and I, or perhaps me and Lewis or the rest of the team, can have between ourselves? We don't need to worry about asking the family and troubling them with extra things. Like,
I agree.
It's all things like that, really, isn't it? Just being prepared with all that. So I've got a couple of questions that have been sent in by other celebrants.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just going to ask you some of these.
Gosh, okay.
Now, they might be, topics that we've kind of touched on already, but I will give you a few of these because they've been sent in and some of them are really good. So the first one, with the rise in direct cremation and new things like hydro cremation, how do you see funerals evolving over the next decade? So can you just give us a little bit more info on hydro cremation as well?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, it's not happening at the moment in the UK. I think it may be happening, and forgive me if I've got this wrong, in Ireland.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so it is a process, so it is a committal process, so it's a way of the disposal of the deceased through a tank, where they place the deceased in the tank, and whatever they put in with the deceased then will just dispose of it.
Yeah.
And I think you do get something out at the end of it.
Yeah.
I'm not over familiar with it. I'm going to be honest, it's something we're not having at the moment.
It's very new here and not something that we offer here, yeah.
I guess thinking of the 10 years, and I know we've spoken about direct cremations, the things we've all got to be really aware of is our environment.
Yes,
that's massive. And that could be a thing for the reason for that
the hydro.
taking
I think it's meant
over.
To be a little bit better, isn't it, for the environment?
I mean, the crematorium now have all sorts of abatement filters and everything, so you're paying for that. So the cost of cremation is going up as well, so we have to be aware of that. So I think the green funerals is something to be thinking about.
Yes.
It's not easy to completely do a green funeral because lots of things are still imported. You've got the travel if you're rural, so there's lots of things to think about. But that might be something to consider in the future.
Yeah.
I think as we look at the next generations coming through, just thinking about how my children who are in their late 20s, how they, access anything they want, they're buying then. It's all online.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I think we need to, as funeral directors, be looking at that. And I mean, most of us have got good websites, so anybody shopping around. I must mention as well that always, if you're looking for a funeral director, they should have the CMA standardised prices, so that can be compared.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You can compare. So I think we need to be making sure that we're out there. But I still think it's really important that if you can, that we have these face-to-face conversations. So who knows? Who knows? The time scale for a funeral is still around in our area. So this is just bespoke to this area that we serve, but about 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
Because the registration process, etc. But who knows? That might quicken.
Yes.
I don't know. So we'll see. So perhaps if I'm still here in 10 years.
Yeah. Oh, you will be.
I don't know. I would retire. So we will see. But that's an interesting one. But direct cremation, I think in a way is doing a little bit of a we're not sure now.
Yeah. Maybe people are trying it and then thinking actually no. And
it
I think
quite the right thing.
Yeah, like we spoke about, I think having that actual going through the process is important.
It's
for grief.
Important.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, can you discuss funeral celebrant fees? How important are fees when considering which celebrants to put forward to families?
Okay.
Should it be a one size fits all, or like with weddings, do you think celebrants should set their own fees?
Oh, okay, that's interesting. If I think about the fees that the celebrants that I work with charge, they're all very similar, actually. Mm-hmm. If I had a celebrant that charged, I don't know, £50 more, for instance, I think, well, fair enough. If that's your choice and you're very good at what you do, I think that I would prefer to pay the higher fee, but know that family is going to be looked after well. I don't think it's up to us to dictate.
No.
The Church of England have a set fee.
That's it.
I always think that if you look at what the Church of England, so if you were employing a minister to conduct a funeral and then we employed you, they are on a par.
Yes, absolutely,
but, there's a lot of work that goes into this, as you know, behind the scenes from you, the travel, on the day, the aftercare, the worry, so actually why not put a value for that as a fee? I would be uncomfortable. I can advise if the celebrant said, what do you think? But they are all roughly the same amount.
And I think that's the thing as celebrants, really, we do look across the market around nearby, and actually a lot of us do, like you say, look at the Church of England.
Yes.
And although our offering might be a bit more in depth. And, you know, we do spend a lot of time, of course, getting to know our families, but actually we don't want it to be significantly more than what they would be paying for a Church of England fee, because I don't think
so. And actually the other thing that I know we haven't touched on, but is funeral poverty as well. There's that.
Exactly.
So again, we don't want to be thinking, wow, this family can't have a funeral because they can't afford it.
Exactly.
But actually I would then be having a conversation with my celebrant and say, look, what can we do here to help?
In those circumstances. Yeah,
but I certainly wouldn't want to set a fee. And I think if I got a celebrant that was absolutely brilliant, then you know, I don't want to say you get what you pay for, because that's not the right thing to say.
I understand what you mean. There's the value on it.
The value absolutely on their experience.
That's something then that you can advise with your families. You can say, look, this celebrant is going to be, you know, cost a little bit more, but actually what you're getting is this,
exactly.
And this. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so with the increasing number of funeral celebrants available, what qualities make a celebrant stand out from the crowd?
I think, we've touched on the attributes, haven't we?
Yes.
So if I had a celebrant walk into my office today and introduce themselves, I think it's just on their personality.
Yeah.
Just being themselves.
Yeah.
And, you know, and also, if you don't know something, don't worry. We'll
just
find,
ask.
you know, don't make it up. So I think for me, if I have a celebrant walk in and they're bubbly and we get on, that's enough.
Yeah.
And then I think from there, we take it from there. It must be hard for celebrants if they haven't done this before, because they need to get a foot in the door.
Of course, yeah.
And I don't quite know how that works with your training.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to have the faith in the funeral director to say, okay, well, look, this is a family. It's quite a simple funeral, you know. But I think if they've got that right personality, you can normally tell straight away.
Yeah, and I think getting that connection as well, like you say, there's nothing like going in to see somebody in person. Yeah. And I think that's the thing. I even remember with you guys, it was when I just moved to the new area and I came in and I came and met Lewis and had a little chat with him. And it was a couple of months later that I remember you rang me and you were like, oh, actually, Laura, we've got a, you know, a funeral. And it's, you know, it's great. We've worked together ever since. But I think exactly like you say, going in and meeting people in person, you just can't beat that.
I think so.
And do you think in that case you would prefer celebrants to contact you by phone or email first and arrange a time? Because obviously...
Yeah, don't just walk in.
Yeah.
Because as you know, we never know from one minute to the other in our industry what's going to happen.
Yeah.
We always try to give our celebrants that meet us, and we do get a few through the door, you know, where they're just training, whatever. I would make an appointment, say, can I come in and see you?
Yeah,
and almost ask them the questions, ask for their information, find out what crematorium that they serve. Perhaps ask if you could even sit in on some and just watch what happens.
That's great advice.
And sort of try, you know, just become part of their team. But I think if you've got that personality and you click, that's fine.
Yeah, that's
But, you know, what you have to remember is that most funeral directors will have... we have to, because, you know, otherwise you're never allowed to go on holiday. Doing funerals. So we do have a few.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yes, we do match them up to according, like we've discussed. So so I think for anybody that's considering it, go down that high street, meet them. You might not like them.
Exactly.
You know,
it's as much both ways.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing. And I guess as well for celebrants, it depends on what they want to offer as well. Because the majority of my work is weddings, and then you are the only funeral directors I work with. Yes. Because actually, I love you guys. We get on well. It's enough. Yeah. You know, the funerals that I do for you is enough for me at the moment. That's a good number for me. So that works really well. But I think you're absolutely right. It shouldn't just be a one-way street, actually. No. Yeah. If you can find that working relationship, it makes everyone's life better.
If you work with somebody, and I hope it never happens, a funeral director, and they weren't great, would you want your name put to them?
Exactly.
You know,
so true.
Because you've got to, I guess, actually, me talking about trust, but you've got to trust me as much as I trust you, that I've ordered that music, that we are going to turn up on time, that I have got everything as you asked it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So true. I think that relationship is so important.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what's the best thing about being a funeral director, and what's the most challenging thing?
Oh, gosh. Wow, that's interesting. The best thing, I think, is at the end of a funeral when you walk away with the family and you have served them, you know, and you've done the very best you can. And it's nobody wants to be at a funeral very often. Nobody wants to be our friend. Yeah. But, you know, to have that acknowledgement, really, that we have done that job for them and they can go away, then that's it, you know. It's stressful, and I will never stop in the middle of the night waking up stressing that I haven't ordered that music, and I have, obviously.
But you just worry.
It is quite stressful because you've only got one shot at getting this right.
That's it.
Know?
I think that's so
and
true.
I think mixed in with the emotions that the family may be going through, I'm assuming it's very different to a wedding. I don't know.
Yeah, it is.
I don't think I'm going to be a wedding planner.
It is very different, but also different in such a rewarding way.
Yes.
Like, I absolutely love weddings, and I love the joy of weddings, and you know, that buzz you get afterwards is fantastic. But the honour that it is to be welcomed into a family and be given that privilege to hear their stories and their favourite memories of that person, and to be trusted to be the last person to offer that, you know, conduct that service that's their final farewell is just
massive,
such a
isn't
privilege.
It's massive.
It never ever
and
gets
I get
old.
nervous. I've been doing this quite a few years now, and I still get nervous before each one. And I think the moment you stop sort of getting a little bit nervous, you know, you're going through it all in your head, and we have a staff briefing before we all leave, and they're all given their little jobs. If you start getting a bit complacent, that's the time to leave it. Because this is so important to get this right. It doesn't matter if it's a 10-minute service or it's a double slot with 300 mourners. It doesn't matter. Yeah, they are so important to get it right. So,
and then finally, this one I really love. They've said, in the style of snog, marry, avoid. Right. What would you go for? Burial, natural burial, or cremation? So snog, marry, avoid. You've got to choose one that you like, one that you would love, and one that you'd avoid.
Okay, so
just for you personally.
For me
this
personally,
isn't obviously. We know it's right for every family.
So I would like what's the top one?
So snog, marry, avoid. So basically, what would you like? What would you love long term?
What would I like?
What would you avoid?
Okay, what I'd really like is a burial.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Long term, it's going to be a cremation.
Yes. Yeah.
Not that I'd avoid it, but the natural burial, because it's just not as close to where I'd want to be. Yeah. You know, that's it really.
Yeah, because that's the thing, I guess, with natural burial, you have to go specifically where the grounds are.
Yeah, we have gotten quite close to us.
Yeah.
And I'm, again, as a mum and for my husband, thinking actually it's what's easiest.
Yeah,
There's
true.
me talking about this with the whole direct cremation.
So true.
But I haven't put direct cremation in there.
No, true. You haven't included that.
I think I would if it was up to me, but it's not up to me. So I'm already thinking, no, my kids would kill me if I did that.
Oh,
so
I love it.
There we go.
Now I feel like you've given bags of these, but I always end with this, so I'm going to end with it anyway. One piece of advice for anyone considering becoming a celebrant. So anyone who's listening to this and thinking, I'd quite like to do that, what's one bit of advice you'd give them?
Just be yourself.
Yeah, lovely.
Absolutely be yourself. Because if you start putting on anything that you're not, then actually that's when it's going to go horribly wrong. Yeah. And if people don't like you, then move on and try and work with somebody. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, thanks, Julie. You've
been
amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on.
You're welcome.